Hey, everybody, welcome back. Week 2 is upon us, and we are here for the Spartan Shadows podcast to break down a little bit of what happened in the Western Michigan game week 1, but mostly to focus on the rematch with Boston College this weekend. The Eagles will be coming into Spartan Stadium. The Spartans trying to look for some revenge after the heartbreak last year in Boston. So we're excited. Week 2 is upon us. Going in 1-0. Can't complain about that too much. And we're happy to be here. So I'm one of your hosts, Chris, and as always joined with co-host Zach and Emmett. Guys, how you doing?
Doing good. Obviously excited to be 1-0. A tale of two halves, really, at least offensively against Western. Obviously, we've seen Jonathan Smith talk quite a bit about this Boston College game coming up. I don't know if he necessarily used quote unquote like truly like a revenge game. I know that word's been kind of thrown around, but he's also talked a little bit and kind of showed a little bit of fight and a little bit of like excitement or a little bit of like passion for this game as well, which I think is one thing that this fan base has been looking for him to do is show a little bit of energy. And I thought he gave some interesting quotes and just about like, hey, we remember what happened last year, and there's guys on the team that remember what happened last year. And then he gave another interview after that, and he's like, yeah, there's still some guys that didn't remember last year. So I'm like, are we going to use this as a little bit of like motivation? Can we get a little bit more of like the Jonathan Smith where it's like, okay, like we know like you feel it, like you're giving a little bit, like we need more of that. But outside of that, excited for the Boston College game. How about
I'm
you?
doing pretty good. Excited for the Boston College game. Obviously, glad that I'm not making the 12-hour trip out to Boston. I believe when we recorded this time last year, I was not on the podcast, or we recorded way early for it. So, not on the road this time. Get to have the short hour drive to Spartan Stadium in a couple days. Very excited for that. Excited to have the Eagles in Spartan Stadium. Track record for the Spartans isn't the best against the Eagles, 5-1-1 all-time record. But overall, just very excited for this game. And like Zach said, you can kind of tell this means a little more to some of the players. Others like Aiden Childs and Jalen Thompson both kind of pushed it off as, yeah, there's some, we feel like we could have won that game, but we're focused on ourselves. A couple others, such as Jordan Hall, basically said, hey, we can use that to fuel us a little bit, but we're not going to say it's a revenge game and base all of our wanting to win off of revenge for 2024, because that's not strong enough to win us this game in 2025. We need to do it for the 2025 team. So overall, it's kind of a mixed bag in the locker room of, is it a revenge game or is it just the next opponent on the schedule and its next game in line. But overall, I'm very excited for this game. I think it's going to be a good one like last year's was, at least if you were a Boston College fan. But yeah, 1-0. Let's jump straight into that Western game. I'm sure we don't have there's not a ton to take away from a week 1 against a opponent who, no offense to the Broncos fans, I'm sure the Broncos will look good in MAC competition this year, but they're not on the same level as the Big Ten squad. I think we can agree.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we'll just do some quick takeaways. We have about 3 of them that we'll just share. But just to recap, MSU did win week 1 over Western 23-6. First half started out pretty great. Second half, the offensive players kind of, I don't know if it was an intentional thing, but it looked like they kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit. You know, not what you want to see as a Spartan fan, because we got kind of accustomed to that last year, and it was really frustrating at times. So I did think and I'll use this as my takeaway to start us off on the 3 takeaways. I thought the defense played really, really well. Did not allow a defensive point. The 6 points Western scored was off a pick 6 in garbage time when backup QB Alessio Milivojevic was in. Unfortunately, Michigan native and former Spartan Halleck kind of read a play and was able to jump on a ball and pick it and run it back for a touchdown. But I thought the defense played really well. The defensive backs, I thought, covered the receivers really well. We're pretty sticky on coverage. And then the biggest thing for me was the ability to shut down the run. The best Spartan defenses of the past have been able to shut down the run first. And I thought we did a really good job of that. So can't really complain about that too much. Like I'm saying, we've all kind of hit it. It is a MAC school. Obviously, the MAC produces some good football from year in and year out. It's not the lowest possible competition you could have as a tune-up game to start your season, but definitely not to the level of even what you're going to see from Boston College this weekend with Bill O'Brien. So I thought it was a good start overall. I was happy. Some things obviously need to be cleaned up. There's a few more things that we kind of touched on. I know I made a quick breakdown after the game. Emmett posted his takeaways, and then Zach discussed his on his other podcast, the Michigan Sports Podcast. If you want to hear our individual thoughts, Emmett and I's are up on the podcast, YouTube, and Zach's on his page too. So we've all kind of discussed them. We won't, beat them to death again, but that was, I think, the biggest focal point for me was the defense playing pretty well, and they're going to need to carry that over, well, for the whole season if the Spartans really want to get to where they want to be. So what do you guys think was your biggest takeaways?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that takeaway. And really the first thing that stood out and the thing that really caught my eye throughout the whole thing that you mentioned in the takeaway is one of the first things that you talked about was putting the foot on the pedal. And when you said that, the idea of foot, leg came up, and let's talk about comes to punters. Like, he is obviously, in my opinion, the best punter in the country. I think he was the best punter last year. He should have absolutely won the Ray Guy last year. Like, it should have been a competition. He was just all over Western Michigan in the game. I believe he had 2 punts in the 5-yard line at least.
Yeah, inside the 2.
Yeah, basically on the 2.
One on the 1.
And you also and you also have to give credit to Caleb Gash as well. I thought he did a really great job of setting the tone on special teams. I think special teams overall was really good in this game outside of the field goal attempt by Ryan Eckley, which I don't think we can necessarily blame him for that. I would say Ryan Eckley can do anything he wants to do. He absolutely rightfully deserves it. My real question regarding him is, can he kick field goals? The answer to that question is maybe. I don't know. It wasn't super confident. Yeah, it found his leg. It was a good distance. There's just a little bit left, but that's okay because we'll get kickers back. We'll get Kyneton back. We'll get any one of our kickers back, and then Ryan Eckley can solely focus on punting. And I know that he was a guy that had a press conference earlier this week, and he talked about how punting and golf is kind of very similar to each other. I also know that Emmett asked a great question regarding that, where let's just say he can't necessarily answer his response truly there, and then laughing away. So unfortunately, we don't know the exact answer to Emmett's question, but it was a funny moment. So good job there, Emmett. But yeah, my biggest takeaway is Ryan Eckley, absolute weapon when it comes to using his legs.
Yeah, so what I asked Ryan Eckley was basically, hey, what did you tell Caleb Gash before that kickoff? Because he was a man possessed, absolutely clotheslined the return man twice. And he said, I probably can't say that here. So that was, he thought about it for a second, was like, yeah, I can't say that to the media. So overall, we may never know. We have a good idea of what probably not PG friendly. My biggest takeaway was probably the offense. Second half offense in general just did not click. There were 0 offensive points scored that entire second half, which, okay, you're up by 3 touchdowns against a MAC school. You don't need to show your playbook. You don't need to show your hand. You have your third string running back in. Overall, there's a lot of reason. Okay, let's not really tip off what we're going to do. We're rotating our offensive line, getting them experience. But the concern becomes, last season, the final 4 games of the year, you had 2 touchdowns during the during the second half of those 4 games. So if you splice all those games together, you have 2 full games with 2 touchdowns. And now you have 2.5 games, and the only points you've scored are 2 offensive touchdowns, maybe 1 field goal, and the safety from Friday night. That is a concern. Granted, Jonathan Smith did say that they were trying to score, and that in the first half they were not really holding back much when they jumped out to that 21-0 lead. He never really addressed the second half, so the hope, if you're a Michigan State fan, the hope is that, second half they laid off a ton. But there was a lot of self-inflicted wounds. You even saw it in the end of the first half, the 2-minute drill getting destroyed by Ndame Tucker. So overall, those become your concerns. Just Ndame Tucker had 10 career tackles heading into the game. I feel like he had at least 8 pressures on Friday night alone. He had 1 career sack heading into the night, had 2 by halftime. There is a lot of stuff that you need to clean up. 3 of the offensive linemen had pass block grades below 40. For the record, on PFF, a kneel down is a 60. So overall, your average play is a 60, and you have players scoring 23, 22, and 35.4. That's not winning football against a MAC school, let alone against Boston College, who Michael Messina earlier in the week said, sure, they don't have their all-star, Donovan Azariku, who's now with the Cowboys, who are actually playing as we record this podcast. But he did identify 2 players on their defense as guys that, yeah, they still have good edge pressure this year. And I think we can segue into the Boston College game with that. For overall, what do we think this year? Well, heading into this game.
Yep, and that's a good time to segue in. Just before we do, I do want to just give Mekhi Frazier some dabs for his over 100-yard rushing against Western. Great job to Mekhi. But
shout out Omari Kelly for a Spartan debut.
Yeah. So a couple of good keys in the offense there. But yes, Boston College. Let's switch over to that. Primed, ready to go. We have kickoff set for a little after 7:30 on Saturday. Game will be televised on NBC and Peacock. Going into the game, currently the Spartans are 4.5-point favorites on most sports books. I've seen the line as high as 5 on MGM. It opened at 3.5 for MSU. Yeah, so it's climbing. A lot of money seems to be coming in on the Spartans, and I don't know how I feel about that, but we'll just play that there. Last year, like we said, Boston College, we did play them in BC, and unfortunately fell just a little bit short, 23-19. Boston College did lose a lot of talent from that last team, as we've kind of alluded to. A couple of NFL players going into the league. You know, their quarterback in Thomas Castellanos now down at Florida State, upsetting Alabama last weekend. And then they do have, though, head coach Bill O'Brien, one of the more, let's say, brighter and more seasoned head coaches in the league. So, it's going to be an interesting test, to say the least. I guess starting for my thoughts going into the game, I'm a little nervous. Well, we'll be honest. Emmett kind of alluded to it. The offensive line giving up some of the pressures the way it did in the second half against Western. Yes, I know, especially Boston College's best pass rusher last year, Donovan Azariku, is now playing for the Cowboys. He's not there. We don't have to deal with him. But the overall step up in competition, I think, from Western to BC is going to be a test for the Spartans, and I think the offensive line really needs to show something. In the first half of the Western game, I thought they did really well, opening some holes for Mekhi Frazier, getting some seals on the edge, and really even in pass pro, doing some good things. And then what happened in the second half, I couldn't really tell you. It just seemed kind of be like polar opposite, and so that's a cause for concern. It definitely could be something that Bill O'Brien tries to exploit. And then that being said, Boston College has some dynamic playmakers, some skill position players that the Spartans really need to key in on. Turbo Richard, the running back, I think is going to be a guy to watch. If the Spartans can shut down the run as well as it did against Western, kind of keep him in check, I think that will go a long way to helping the BC, or stymie the BC offense, trying to make them a little one-dimensional, and letting the secondary sit back and hopefully do well in pass pros. Kind of just some things I'm looking at there. I know we have some more keys and I got a few more things to say, but let's see what Emmett and Zach think about this Boston College team, who really put together a complete performance against Fordham last week. I know it's Fordham. They're one of the teams that's maybe the step below Western, that lower level of tune-up game, but they looked really good, especially on the offensive side of the ball against Fordham. So what do you guys think the Spartans need to key in next week to be victorious?
Yeah, so when you obviously play a team like Fordham, it's one of those things that you can look at the score, you can look at the stats, and be like, you don't learn much from it, to be completely honest with you, just because of kind of the opponent that they played. Now, again, I don't want to make it seem like I don't think this Boston College team isn't good, or I don't think there's certain players on this team to watch out for, because I truly think that if you look at the talent that this Boston College team has, you can definitely see that this is going to be a team that is going to come in ready to play under Bill O'Brien. That's just the way he is, and they have, like Chris was talking about, playmakers on this team. One guy is Lewis Bond. Like, you saw him play extremely well against Fordham. You saw him play extremely well against MSU, had 6 catches, 102 yards, 1 touchdown last year. He's going to be someone the secondary is going to be completely really focusing on. And also, they struggled against the run last week against Fordham. Now, I did listen to, I think, Locked On Spartans. Basically, their guy said that Boston College was kind of keeping it pretty simple when it comes to the run game. So maybe this running game is going to be quite a bit better than what we think. But also, you have the strength of this defense is probably stopping the run. So that's one thing to watch out for. And then really the last thing before I give it over to Emmett that we haven't brought up one time at this point is that Nick Marsh didn't play in the game last year. You think about who Boston College have, they have Lewis Bond. Well, guess what? We have Nick Marsh. And Nick Marsh is going to be a guy that needs to be involved. He's going to be a guy that needs to be game planned around for. And I think he's a guy that MSU kept pretty simple in the first game, didn't really give him too much. He's going to be a guy that's going to have to be featured in this game because it's one of those things I hate to necessarily say, but it's one of those games that you look at and it's basically a must-win opportunity for MSU. Like, you really need to win this game if you're MSU. You really need to win this game if you're Boston College. And it's the second game of the year, and it shouldn't be saying that. And maybe it technically isn't a must-win, but if you look at what outcome you want to have at the end of the year, if you want to make a bowl game, in my opinion, this is a must-win, or you have to win a game that you're not favored in the future, which could be very much possible. But if you lose this game, you're going to have to drastically improve to get to that point.
So I completely agree with Zach that this is a Boston College team where now I'm ready. Blooper. I thought I'd start struggling and I was like, oh shit. Yeah, so I completely agree.
6-7.
6-7.
6-7.
Yeah, so I completely. Oh my god.
I'm just taking a drink, dude. I didn't say a word, nothing.
All right. Yeah, so I completely agree with Zach that this is a Boston College team that they didn't get to see Nick Marsh last year. They returned 2 safeties from last year's team, but neither of them got to play against Nick Marsh, and he is a guy that, if anything, he's improved from last year. And then they have to plan for a wide receiver 3 in the game plan this year. Last year it was about a even 1/3 split between Jalen Smith, Jack Janacek, and Zach Gillespie. No offense to any of those 3, but there is a reason why those guys were primarily special teams players or transferred down to the Sun Belt. There's a reason why those guys were not stars after that game. So overall, just looking at it, this team has a wide receiver 3 besides Jack Velling. Also played wide receiver 3 in that game at that point. They have a tight end. Hopefully they have a tight end who's going to be able to play the entire game. Michael Masuma's left mid-game with an injury, season-ending injury. And they have Christian Phillips. He also was out for that game. Stanton Ramil is no longer making his first career start against the Defensive End of the Year award winner. There is a lot of arguments you can make for Michigan State football right now. But I'm sure if you're a Boston College expert, you're talking about all the arguments you can make for the Eagles. So overall, on paper, this looks like it's a game that Michigan State might even get to a 10-point victory, might get to that 17-point victory, some people are saying. Overall, I think you're going to have to prove a lot. You're going to have to prove how that second half goes. You just basically cannot let up, and you can't just let the second half kind of be an issue. We saw against Boston College last year, that was really the start of second half issues. When MSU was up 13-6 heading into halftime, Spartans only scored 6 points the rest of the game, and BC stormed back to win 23-19. So you have to avoid the turnovers. Aiden Childs has gotten a lot better at avoiding the turnovers, avoiding the bad play. He had a fumble in the opener against Western Michigan. Well, 2 fumbles. Don't know if you can really blame him for the second when he got absolutely blindsided on a missed block. But that's still something that you can't miss your blocks if you want to have a chance to stay in this game. Because as strong as Western's defense was, at least in the second half, that BC defense is going to be stronger. Their defensive coordinator, a veteran, very good at giving a team a different look for every single game they play. So you have to be able to capitalize, and you have to make adjustments that work if you're this offense. Because if you go up at half by 14 points, I still don't feel safe until I see how that second half offense looks, I'll be honest. Lewis Bond, you might have to give that treatment that you did Ty Felton last year against Maryland. You know that guy's going to get his yards, but if you can contain everyone else, like Dawson Powell had 96 receiving yards for them last game. The backup quarterback had 190 passing yards. Worth noting, Dylan Lonergan did not practice on Tuesday for the Eagles, but he was back at practice on Wednesday. Just a small storyline to monitor, overall health. He was back practicing yesterday. We're recording this Thursday night, if we haven't already mentioned. So overall, we do feel like Lonergan's going to play. He's probably going to take the majority of reps, if not all of them. Yeah. But that's just a small storyline to monitor. If you can get pressure on him, if you can get hits on him, you might see a backup get pulled into that game if he's not feeling 100%. Granted, Grayson James going 5 for 5 for 190 yards. You don't really know how much of a drop-off that's going to be.
Yeah. Well, and I think some of that is the Fordham effect. But yeah, I mean, he played really well in relief or in his time last week. So who knows what that's going to look like. But I think you guys kind of hit it on the head. It's a must-win game for it being this early in the season. If you want to achieve the level of success you feel like you need to achieve this year. And unfortunately, with Jonathan Smith, a loss in this game, it's going to raise some questions. It's going to make that seat a little bit hotter than maybe it should. But in this day and age, that's kind of the risk you take when you are at high-level football programs like MSU. I think as much as I think he needs time to build and get his guys in, and I feel great about where the team's, trending. If you come out and lose a game like this, and with the struggles in the second half of the first game, you're going to have a lot of people in this fan base and in the media really starting to questioning, where this direction of this team's heading. I don't, fair or not, I'd rather just not see it. So let's hopefully come in and put some stuff together and come out victorious. I think, like Emmett said, maybe on paper, I do think the Spartans are the better football team. I think if they can put together a complete game, they should win the game. But it's just one of those things where I don't know if they've played a complete game in. I couldn't tell you the last game. I thought it has been complete, start to finish. So
I'm here.
Yeah, so it's something that I think needs to really be a focus, and let's see what happens on Saturday. Maybe the new uniform combo will give them an extra boost. That was released today. Emmett has a little article up on Shadows about it, but black shirts with white pants and a white and black striped helmet that we haven't seen before, so kind of a cool black and white look for the primetime game. I like it. I don't know if you guys agree. I've seen some mixed reviews on the social medias, but I love it. So maybe that'll get some extra fire in the boys.
Yeah, no, I really like it. I think it looks really cool. Obviously, it's not your quote unquote green and white, but it looks good. I don't know
what to think of it, especially because I don't even remember the last time a Michigan State football helmet didn't have at least some green accents in it. Because, even the big white blown-up ones, they still had the green outline of the Spartan head. You don't have that in this one. The most green you can find on that helmet is in the rubber nameplate for state above the face mask.
Yeah, I was going to say no green logos, so we're minimal green.
Also, one more thing before we get into score predictions, just overall injury update and team health update. So last week, 7 players missed the game due to injury, along with a couple others like Dontavius Nash did not dress. Luka Vinkic did dress but did not play. Just an update on those guys. Luka Vinkic, they said they do probably expect him back. They feel pretty good about him. Jack Velling played limited. He's expected to be right there with injury. He's expected to be as close to healthy as possible, if not completely healthy. Nakai Martinez, the biggest name of the players who missed outside of really the kicking game. Nakai Martinez, he's expected to, he at least was taking reps with the team. there is some hope and optimism that he will be playing on Saturday night. Obviously, we'll find out about 2 hours before the game kicks about what we're planning for. No real updates on Caden Schickel, Brendan Parachek, but the updates that there are is Martin Connaughton is the kicker that they're most optimistic for. Tariq Ahmed Basic, Johnson Smith mentioned him after some prompting from the media. Did not outright commit to him either. He said, yeah, he looks about the same as everyone else, which I'm taking that as, okay, I don't know if you see Ahmed Basic this game. I would rather have him be fully healthy than kicking on an injured leg. We saw what that did with Matt Coughlin a couple years back. And then did not hear any health update about Andrew Brinson IV, the final guy who was really on that injury report. Same thing with Dontavius Nash. No real updates for those two defensive backs, but the Spartans played 15 defensive backs in the opener. If those two are healthy, you have 17 players who could be playing in the secondary off the bench. That's a little absurd, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, well, and hopefully one of the kickers can go, because I mean, I know Ryan's leg is probably good enough to sustain and have Eckley do the kicks, but I have a feeling the kicking game is going to be a little bit more needed in this one, so I'm hoping we can get, an actual kicker. No disrespect to Ryan, he's amazing in everything he does, but I'd like him to, horses slow. Like them to maybe be able to take some pressure off Eckley's shoulders a little bit. With that, transition into score predictions. I will start off. I guess a little preview of the prediction article coming out for Shadows. I said I think it'll be 21-17 Spartans. I do think MSU is going to win the game. I'm nervous about it, but I do think they're going to win the game. I think the defense will play well enough again against Boston College's offense. I maybe do think some of the impressiveness last week was some of the Fordham effect. No disrespect to Boston College, because they do have some talented players, and we outlined why, but I think the Spartans can match up with it. They'll play well, and then I think the offense does just enough to escape with a win. First TD scorer, I'm going to stick with Mekhi Frazier. I think the Spartans are really going to focus on trying to establish the run in most of the games, so he seems to be the back that I think is the most likely to get in there. And yeah, I'll go with Mekhi Frazier for me.
All right. I will say for my score prediction, just like Chris, I do think this is going to be a close one. Chris also predicted that the Spartans would not cover. I agree with Chris right now. I say it's 24-21 MSU. I do think MSU emerges victorious, but I don't think the Spartans are quite at the point where they're going to be in blowout territory for the Eagles. I think the Eagles are a very talented team. I think the Spartans overall have the talent to definitely beat them and even maybe blow them out. But I've said this a million times, I don't have the confidence in that second half offense. So could I see it being the Spartans are up 21-3, 21-0 at half, and then things kind of get in jeopardy a bit? Sure. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope that me throwing all that negative energy in the air is a deterrent. But overall, I think 24-21 MSU. Maybe you see a Charleston Nick Marsh go-ahead touchdown. Would be sweet revenge for last year after the Lewis Bond 42-yard go-ahead. And then I would say first touchdown scorer, give me Brandon Tolis. I went Marsh last week, Tolis this week, 6-7.
But I'm actually a little bit more optimistic than you guys, which is like typically score predictions. I feel like I'm one of the closer ones typically, but for this one, I actually have MSU winning 24-13.
Wow.
I actually think MSU wins decently comfortable. Now, I do think it's going to be one of those games that you look at the end score and it maybe doesn't feel exactly like that, or like throughout the game you don't necessarily feel like it's a two-possession game, just because of how close it is, but I do think it ends up being that way. And do I really need to give too much of an explanation on who's going to give my touchdown? There's going to be 1 week I'm going to be right. I don't think they used him a ton last week. I think he's finally getting healthier. He had press conference earlier this week. Brian Wozniak seemed like they want to include more tight ends. So give me number 12, Jack Belling. We'll see how much longer this goes for, because there's going to be a week that I'm not going to pick him, and then it's going to happen. So maybe I should.
I think you didn't pick him for the Rutgers game last year, and then he did. So
yeah. So it's my
yeah.
fault.
No, and I guess I will say overall, I do think if the Spartans play their complete game, their perfect game, that they should win by double digits fairly easily. I haven't seen it yet in quite some time, so that's why I'm a little more unoptimistic. But hopefully, like I still feel comfortable with them, winning. I think the line being at 3.5 to open was pretty darn accurate. So that's why I did my pick. But yeah, it's going to be a fun one. I'm excited to watch. Before we close down for the evening, I do want to just quick mention some good news and some bad news for Spartans fans. We'll start with the bad news because I'm always a bad news first kind of person. But unfortunately, on the opening kickoff today for the NFL opener, Ben Van Sumeren, former Spartan dog, appears to have suffered a torn ACL on the kickoff. Obviously, they haven't done any tests or anything, but it was a pretty significant looking knee injury. He had to be carted off the field. So prayers up to Ben. I hate to see that to anybody, but knowing how hard Ben's worked to get on that roster, just rough watching. And I think that also kind of got overshadowed with a little bit of what happened shortly after while Ben was down. So I just want to shout out Ben. Hopefully everything's going okay, and prayers that whatever's wrong heals quickly. Hopefully maybe we'll get lucky and he avoided a significant knee injury, but it did not look good. So flipping it over to good news, George Blaha is getting inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame this weekend. He will not be on the radio call for those Spartan fans who listen to the Spartan radio network for games. So if you turn on the radio broadcast and wonder where George is, it's because he's getting inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame this weekend. So congrats to George. Well deserved, obviously. Excited for him. A true Spartan guy here for all these years, and happy to see him get some recognition in the basketball world. So that's all I really have. We had some stories, grind week starting in basketball, a lot of former players returning, some hockey news and notes, but not really a ton to fill in. We'll probably get an updated, maybe mini episode out in a couple weeks with that. We'll be back next week, of course, to break down the BC game. And then, as slated, we do have a special guest potentially ready to join us next week as well. So I'm not sure how we're going to structure everything. We might just do like a breakdown preview episode like this one and then do our guest interview separately. I don't know. We'll figure that out and get that out to you. Unfortunately, with how busy the football season is, we kind of have to plan things on the fly. So with our schedules being as busy as they are, but we'll try to keep you as posted as we can on the socials and keep you updated. Just be sure to look out for that stuff because I'm really excited for this special guest and it should be a fun one. So guys, before we sign off, anything you guys want to add? All right. Well, easy enough. We thank everybody for tuning in. We thank everybody for all the support. We hit 100 subscribers on YouTube today. So we really appreciate all of you. First kind of big milestone on our YouTube page. So we were excited about that. Keep sharing, keep liking, keep commenting, doing all that stuff. Hopefully 200's right around the corner and we'll do something special. Maybe Emmett will have a steak when we get to 200. So
jeez.
So again, we appreciate everybody. Thanks for tuning in and look for some fun updates and content this weekend. Emmett will be in the press box like always. You'll see us posting as much as we can to get everything covered. So thanks for tuning in. Go Green.
Go White.